Hello everyone, welcome to Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services. This is a video on daily news and editorial analysis, which I'll be covering from the Hindu and Indian Express. So the most important news and editorial of the day that is relevant for both prelims and mains examination perspective will be discussed in this session. Let's get started with the news topic list. Today is 22nd of October. The first important news that is Center plan to invoke RRB for the new segment. This is about the Regional Rural Bank. Second, Great Indian Bustard moved to Pakistan in search of new grassland habitat. Third, state government cannot enter into broadcasting on their own, the regulation coming from the government. Fourth, Supreme Court directs state to take actions against the hate speech. This is a long debated issue, and for the several occasions, Supreme Court has given its remark. Now the last is an editorial, an online fight where children need to be saved. Apart from the news and editorial discussion, at the end of this video, there will be MCQ based questions. These questions will be based on current affairs that will help you for the upcoming prelims examination. So without any further delay, let's get started. And before I begin this session, those of you who are new to our channel, do not forget to subscribe Apti Plus Academy for Civil Services on YouTube. If you like this video, if you find this video informative and helpful, do not forget to press a like button. Starting the session with the first news, that is Center plan to evolve RRB for the new segment, something important for General Studies Paper 3, under the subtopic Indian Economy and Issues Related to Planning, Mobilization, Resource Growth and Development. So to provide credit to the rural consumers, Government of India is planning to leverage almost 1500 odd strong network of 43 regional rural bank, जितने RRBs हैं इंडिया में, उसके सर्विसेज को और ऑगमेंट की जाएगी so that they will be asking to expand the portfolio by adding the new segment. RRB की जो portfolio है उसको बढ़ाने की बात की गई है and the new segment will be added to put an impetus in the growing segment and even call for more financial assistance for the sectors. Now the proposed mandate will require the regional rural bank to go beyond the mainstay and even for the agriculture role to extend the credit for education. This is something very important. Government की काफी focus है education के ऊपर. Education, housing and even for the small business in the rural area will be the priority and the focus area for the government of India. Now this put focus on the RRB by the government that come at the time when the Department of Financial Services working under the Ministry of Finance has flagged the concern about the public sector bank. अगर PSU banks की बात करें, they have shown that the lending in education is low compared to many other faults. And even the education loan due to higher default is continuing struggling in the MSME. That is micro, small and medium enterprises. जो MSME sectors हैं वहाँ पे भी काफ़ी ज़्यादा परेशानी हुई. Government has come up with a specific scheme called PLI scheme to revamp and regenerate the sector, but the performance was not adequate at that level. So which stuff most of the wake in the COVID-19 pandemic and the national lockdown. We have come across the sectors. हमने देखा है कि इस टाइम पे COVID-19 में manufacturing ऐसी sector थी जिसने काफ़ी worst perform किया. It was performing on the negative performance. So post revival of the COVID-19, government is putting all its impetus to ensure that these sectors are taking a revival. And for this, the RRB will be playing a lead role in this. Now, talking about the enhanced access and service excellence reform, according to the government, it says that the initiative and the target will be the part of enhanced access service excellence, also known as EASE reform, that will undertake by the central government. This is something important for the prelims examination. Make sure you have good idea about this. Even you can use this in mains as a fodder point. Now, talking about the EASE reform, this was launched way back in 2018 for the public sector banks and currently is in the 5th phase. So phases की अगर बात करें, इसकी 5th phase जो है operational है. The regional rural bank, the rural bank has been asked to look beyond the crop loans and also provide loans for tractor, small businesses in the rural area, education and housing loan too in the rural areas. तो इसकी ambit को बढ़ाई गई है और जो लोन लेने के दायरे हैं उसको और बढ़ाया गया. Now, the EASE program for the RRB would entail the focuses on digitalizing the operation and connecting the RRB for each bank. So it will be providing and ensuring that this program is making success and the reachability is with a bottom-up approach. Now, advantages for the rural India, providing the RRBs, the new mandate may serve two important purposes. The first is that it will help them to expand the businesses by leveraging a huge rural network, and even for the local understanding to enhance the credit to the rural consumer for the purpose of education, housing, and micro businesses. By micro businesses, I mean MSME, that is micro, medium, small, and micro, small, and medium enterprises, right? MSME would be an important segment here, education and housing. Asking the RRB to lend towards the education, housing, and small business would help the credit ability to the sectors. And another sources is that the government want Indian banking associations to guide the rural bank. So the guiding factor will be coming directly from the IBA, that is Indian Association Bank, because RRB would be expanding the services to other sector which include education, housing, and MSME will be a guiding factor from the Indian Banking Association. Now, each RRB in the country has a PSB and it has a sponsor bank with owned 40%, and 25% is owned by the state government, 20% is owned by the government and in government of India, that is by the central government, as the rest is owned by RRB. So, आप देख सकते हैं, this is how the actual bifurcation take place. 55% in the segment is kept with the regional rural bank. Now moving to the other news, that is GIB moved to Pakistan in search of new grassland habitat. This is about the Great Indian Bustard, something important for General Studies paper 3 under the subtopic Conservation, Environmental Pollutions, Degradation and EIA, that is Environmental Impact Assessment. So India is alleged losing the rarest bird, that is the Great Indian Bustard, a very important bird. And even a question was directly asked by the UPSC in the prelims examination. Make sure you have a fair idea about the complete status, the conservation status and the IUCN status. So it was being observed that India is losing the GIB to Pakistan, that is a critically endangered species mostly found in the Rajasthan, and the crossing borders in the new grassland habitat. The Great Indian Bustard population is less than 100 in Rajasthan, account for 95% of the total world population, that remain constant in Pakistan and even falling easy prey by the gun-toting poachers. The recent sight of 3 GIB, that is the Great Indian Bustard deep in the Pakistan Cholesistan district, has given rise to speculations about the endangered bird, which has flown across the international border from the Indian National Park, right? Indian Desert National Park की जो area है वहाँ पे भी इसे देखा गया. GIB are critically endangered in Pakistan because of the lack of the protection and the rampant hunting. Now talking about the conservation project which is ongoing for this GIB, the Great Indian Bustard, the state bird of Rajasthan. This is an important question even for many other government examinations. They can ask you a direct question about the GIB belonging to which particular state as a state bird. The correct answer will be Rajasthan, right? And it considered as the most critical endangered bird protected under the Wildlife Protection Act. The population of is about like close to 150 in Rajasthan, accounting for 95% of the world population. The capacity building of the GIB up to the DNP project executed by the Dehradun-based World Wildlife of India in 2019. As many as 24 Great Indian Bustard chicks are being reared in DNP by the team, which is sponsored by the International Fund of Hubera Conservation of the United Arab Emirates. Rajasthan shares the international border with Pakistan, Sindh, Punjab provinces, and it's suspected that the Great Indian Bustard might have flown across the neighboring countries, even talking about Pakistan specifically, amid the fear that that could become easy prey for the poachers there. So definitely it's a time that Government of India should come up with more proactive measures and policies to ensure that the Great Indian Bustard are being conserved. Already बहुत सारी ऐसी schemes हैं government की जो already aligned है. We'll discuss that also. But some proactive measures are required on a priority basis to ensure to conserve the GIB. Now about the Great Indian Bustard, it's considered as a flagship grassland species representing the health of the grassland, an important point to be noted. The population is confined mostly in Rajasthan and Gujarat, so these two states where the population of GIB is found, and small population occur in the state of Maharashtra, Karnataka and Andhra Pradesh. The bird is under the constant threat due to the collision electrocutions and even for the power transmission lining, hunting and habitat loss. प्रोटेक्शन स्टेटस की अगर बात करें, as per the IUCN status, this is critically endangered that I've discussed earlier also. And talking about the conservation on international trade in endangered species of flora and fauna, on the sites it is under Appendix 1. कन्वेंशन ऑन माइग्रेटरी स्पेसीज CMS के अंदर ये अपेंडिक्स 1 के अंदर आती है. एंड टॉकिंग अबाउट द वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट ऑफ 1972, दिस इज अंडर द शेड्यूल 1, राइट. सो दीज आर द प्रोटेक्शन स्टेटस ऑफ द ग्रेट इंडियन बस्टर्ड. गवर्नमेंट की क्या क्या स्कीम्स हैं दैट इज एक्चुअली वर्किंग आउट. द फर्स्ट इज द प्रोजेक्ट ग्रेट इंडियन बस्टर्ड. इट हैज बीन लॉन्च्ड बाय द स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ राजस्थान विद एम्स टू कंस्ट्रक्ट द ब्रीडिंग एनक्लोजर्स फॉर द स्पीसीज and developing an infrastructure to ensure human pressures on the habitat. Now, the other important scheme by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, even for the collaboration of the Rajasthan government और World Wildlife Institute जो है, इन्होंने collaborate करके conservation breeding facility बनाई है, which is working in a desert national park in Jaisalmer since 2019. The objective of this program is to build a capacitive populations of the great Indian bustard and release the chicks into the wild for increasing the population. And last but not the least, the important scheme is the National Bustard Recovery Plan that is currently being implemented by the conservation agencies. Moving to the other news, state government cannot enter into the broadcasting of their own. This particular news is important for General Studies Paper 2 under the subtopic that is Government Policies and Intervention for the development of various sectors and issues arising from its design and implementations. So recently, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has issued an advisory stating that no ministry or department of government of India, center or the union territories. So they have given directive for all three central government, state government, and the union territories that they will not enter into any kind of broadcasting or broadcasting activities in future. So those already broadcasting their content have been told to get it done through the public broadcaster, that is Prasar Bharati. This is a government broadcaster, and the entities during the distributions of broadcasting content has been asked to extract themselves from it by December 1st, 2023. Recommendations की अगर बात करें, that was there by the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. This is an apex body who is taking care of the entire regulation part in India. They have suggested that the central government and the state government, their companies undertaking joint ventures with the public sector, and these entities funded by the government should not be allowed to enter into the business of broadcasting. So this is again a game changer kind of recommendations given by the TRAI, and this relied upon the Sarkaria Commission's recommendations on the Cricket Association case verdict. The Ministry of Information and Broadcasting has said that the advisory has been issued in the view of Telecom Regulatory Authority of India's recommendations. तो TRAI की recommendations के accordingly Government of India ने finally decision लिया है, and even no other entities would be allowed for the broadcasting. What is the regulatory provisions here? I'm talking about the regulatory body. Ministry of Information and Broadcasting is a nodal agency for all other matters related to the broadcasting. Advisory are also being there. So talking about the post, telegraph, telephones, wireless broadcasting and other form of communications, an exclusive privilege is granted with respect of telegraph and powers that rest with the center itself. Now, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India has suggested that the body should fulfill the legitimate aspirations of the government and regarded that the broadcasting activities, and even if you talk about the recommendations that was given to the arm length that call for the relationship between the Prasar Bharati, जो कि government entity, further strengthening, enhancing the autonomy and the function and independence. So they need to have a balance between the broadcaster and other private players. Now, to implement this decision, the entity of the central government, the state government, and the union territory government is into the broadcasting activities for the educational purposes, which will allow through the Prasar Bharati route. So that is the only way possible for any other entities talking about the central government, the state government, and the union territory. They will have to call and have to take a decision, recommendations from the Prasar Bharati itself. Now moving to the other news, Supreme Court directs states to tackle the actions against the hate speech. This is something important for General Studies Paper 2 under the subtopic that is Structure, Organization and Function of Executive and Judiciary. So, calling hate speech as a very serious issue, the Supreme Court has recently directed the state of Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand government to promptly register criminal cases against the culprit without waiting for a complaint just to be filed. So, what actually Supreme Court wanted to say? Supreme Court has said that a suo motu case can also be filed if any cases are arising out of the issues, right? That is against the hate speech. The bench also issued a notice to Delhi police and asked to file a report what action need to be taken against such offences within their jurisdictions. The apex court has warned that any delay on the part of the administration will invite a contempt of the court, which will be there by the government itself. So Supreme Court has categorically stated and taken a harsh decision in terms of the hate speech that is prevailing. Now, what was the directives that was given by the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court directed the first information report, that is the FIR. FIR should be registered for any criminal proceeding initiated against the makers of the hate speech, irrespective of their religion. We have seen recently some remarks that was also there in the media channel. I'm not getting into the deep down of that particular remarks, but this is actually happening in our country, and a regulation of this part is essentially required. The court noted that the action should be taken against those making a hate speech of their religion to preserve the secular fabric of our nation. It further directed to initiate an appreciation actions against the UPA, that is Unlawful Activities of the Prevention Act, and even other relevant penal laws, that is against the speakers and organization engaged in such hate crimes. Now, about the section 295A of the IPC, that is the Indian Penal Code, it punishes for any kind of offense or writing with predetermined or malicious intent to insult citizen, religious or religious belief, with a fine and imprisonment up to 3 years. So this is a provision which is under the IPC of section 295A. Now, according to the report that was submitted by the Law Commission, in its 267 report, the Law Commission of India has said that hate speech is stated as an intimate or a hearted primarily against a group, a person defined in terms of race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientations, religious belief, like that. Right? So these were some of the other specific recommendations coming directly out from the Law Commission of India. Now, moving to the editorial of the day, that is an online fight where children need to be saved, something important for General Studies paper 2, that is welfare schemes for the vulnerable section of the population by the center and the state government. So what I'm going to discuss under this editorial, will be looking into the important theme of this editorial, that is the child sex abuse. And some of the important subheads under this editorial include America and Britain models, in hope, India's efforts so far, efforts by the NGO, and the way forward. So recently, the Central Bureau of Investigation, that is CBI has conducted search across the state and union territory as a part of Pan India Megha Chakra. So this is the name of the operation that CBI has conducted. Now, the operations against the online circulations and sharing of the child sexual abusive material, known as CSM, using a cloud-based storage was based on the input that received from the Interpol Singapore single cell unit. So सिंगापुर की जो स्पेशल सेल यूनिट है इंटरपोल की, उन्होंने गवर्नमेंट को बेसिकली सीबीआई को इंटीमेशंस दी थी, एंड दिस इज कमिंग आउट फ्रॉम द न्यूजीलैंड इंफॉर्मेशन, राइट. सो दिस वाज बेस्ड ऑन द इंफॉर्मेशन दैट वाज रिसीव्ड फ्रॉम द न्यूजीलैंड, राइट. In November 21st, similar exercise was conducted, and this was named as Operation Carbon, that was launched by the CBI with many booked under the IT Act of 2000. Now, as a public reporting and the circulations of the online sexual abuse material are very low, there is no system of automatically electronically monitoring India's enforcement agency that are largely dependent upon the foreign agencies for the requisite information. अगर इंडिया की बात करें, we are still relying upon the Interpol and many other foreign agencies to track and even come up with the conclusions to interrogate that particular cases. Now, America and Britain model, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. This is a non-profit organization, that is an NGO. So this NGO of the United States of America has operated a program called Cyber Pipeline, and this is a public electronic service provider to report the instances of child sexual exploitations. The ISP has been mandated to identify and locate for the individuals suspected in the violations of the law. और अगर बात करें NCME की, that is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, has notified ISP to block the transmission of online sexual abusive materials. In 2021, the cyber tip line has received more than 29.3 million reports of US hosted and suspected CSA. Now in Britain, that is in the United Kingdom, the mission of the Internet Watch Foundation, this is known as IWF, this is again an NGO, non-profit organization, right? So there was established, this is NPO, like I'll be taking into the other part. This is an NPO that established by the United Kingdom internet industry to ensure safe online environment users with particular focus on CSM that include during the disruption of availability of CSM and detecting the content hosted by the United Kingdom. The IWF, that is the International Watch Foundation, has engaged in analytics to actively search of the criminal content and not just only rely on the report of the external sources. Now there's an InHope network. This is a global network of 50 hotline which include 46 member country that provide public with the way to have an anonymity under the CASM. ये infrastructure support और IT support provide करती है. अगर बात करें ICCM, that is in IC Children Abuse Material, this is hosted by Interpol and facilitate the exchange of child sexual abusive material between the hotline and the law enforcement agencies. Now, this acts as a tool for the images and video furnishing fingerprint to reduce the number of duplications of the investigations. In 2021, the number changed and even the content for the URL stood to 9,28,278, out of which 4,43,705 contain illegal content. Now, if you talk about the percentage per se, there's about 72% of illegal content in the URL that were removed from the internet within 3 days of the notice taking the orders. Now, what are the government of India's efforts in this regard? सुप्रीम कोर्ट की अगर बात करें, श्रेया सिंगल की केस थी 2015 में, where Supreme Court has read down the section 79(3)(b) of the IT Act to mean that the ISP only upon receiving actual knowledge of the court order on being notified by an appropriate government shall remove the or disable the excess of the illegal content. So a prior information and a consent is required from the Supreme Court of India. Thus, the ISP are exempted from liability of any third-party informations. Now, in other case, that is Kamlesh Vaswani case, the petitioner sought complete ban on the pornography. After a court intervention, the advisory committee constituted under Section 88 of the IT Act that issues the order in March 2015 that ISP to be disabled in domain or URL की अगर बात करें, this hosted the content for the violation of morality and decency in the Article 19 of the Indian Constitutions. So there are rights also that is provided and guided under the Constitution, but there are some other limitation which government can curb in light of that. The petition is still pending in the Supreme Court. Now, there was an ad hoc committee by Rajya Sabha, which was headed by Jairam Ramesh. I'm mentioning the name specifically because if you're writing in mains paper, you will have to highlight the name of the member. So, ad hoc committee headed by Rajya Sabha, which was there by the Jairam Ramesh, and this report 2020 had made a wide-ranging recommendations on alarming issues of pornography and the child media basically affect the child as a whole and society as a whole. The legislative front of the committee not only recommended the widening definitions of the child pornography, but also proactively monitor the mandatory reporting of the taking down and blocking of the CSM by the ISPs. Now further, the National Crime Record Bureau, that is NCRB, which works under the Ministry of Home Affairs, right? So they have signed a memorandum of understanding, a MOU signed की गई है, and in this MOU, they receive a cyber tip line efforts to facilitate the actions against the upload or share of the CSM in India. And NCRB has received more than 2 million cyber tip reports that have been forwarded to the state and legal action and even for the law enforcement agencies. The Ministry of Home Affairs has launched the National Cyber Crime Reporting in September 2018 for filing the online complaints pertaining to child pornography, rape, and gang rapes. Now, efforts that was made by the non-governmental organization or the NGO, अगर बात करें आरंभ इंडिया की, this is a Mumbai-based NGO which is partnered with the International Watch Foundations that has launched India's first online reporting in September 2016 to report any cases with regards to the child abuse, their videos and the images. These reports are assessed by the team of expert of the IWF and offending the URL added to the block list. Till 2018, out of 1182, that is 1882 reports received, only 112 were found to contain the CSA. Now, if you look into the way forward and conclusion of this particular editorial, so the protection of child against the sexual exploitation and sexual abuse members states to address the issues of corporate liabilities. Again, this is something that has to be there. And it's time to join the INHOP to establish in the hotline to utilize the Interpol in the IT infrastructure, collaborate with the ISPs and the financial companies by establishing an independent facility such as IWF or NCM-EC. The Jairam Ramesh committee, which was an ad hoc committee, their recommendations need to be followed. This is again in the spirit in light of the fact that these will definitely help to secure and even call for the protection of any sort of child abuse. And India need to explore all options to adopt an appropriation strategy to find the productions and even to spread then online sexual abusive material contents. Now moving to the MCQ questions of the day. Before I proceed, just to tell you the answers of yesterday questions. For first question, the correct option is B. For second question, the correct option is C. Today's MCQ for practice, that is Sandy's recently seen in news. Which among the following is correct? First is GI enabled Sand Dunes Social Security Scheme for differently abled, instant messaging app of the Government of India, or a new fertilizer developed by ICR Delhi. Second question of the day about the Security Appellate Tribunal. This is a SAT. Which among the following is correct? It's a statutory body established under the provision of SEBI Act 1992. The presiding officer of SAT shall be appointed by the President of India. You have to check for the correct option. These type of question might be relevant for the upcoming prelims examination. This was all about for the daily news and editorial analysis followed by the MCQ questions. If you have any other concern, you can let me know. I'll be more than happy to assist you. For time being, I'm signing off. Thank you so much for watching this video.